So we're going to start with Beth Lowe-Smith, and Beth is with Casey Healthy Kids. She joined Casey Healthy Kids in 2010 as the Greater Kansas City Food Policy Coalition's director. She currently serves as the Vice President of Policy for Casey Healthy Kids. She leads their efforts to shape policies in government, schools, and businesses to improve opportunities for healthy choices. She works closely with community leaders. I hope many of you have had the opportunity to work with her. I am privileged to say that I do. She works with political officials and many other organizations to improve the regional food system and built environment in the Kansas City Metro. She's going to give us that broad nutrition policy perspective. So join me in welcoming Beth.
All right, so hi everybody, good afternoon. I'm Beth Lowe-Smith, that gal, and I am here to talk with you a little bit about Casey Healthy Kids policy efforts around healthy eating. And I'm going to do that via two projects. The first of them is one that we've been working on in Kansas the last couple of years, reducing the state sales tax on food. So first, I want to talk a little bit about how we came to choose this issue as one we would work on. We believe that it's crucial to work with partners to identify problems, develop solutions, and pursue them. Time and again, we've seen that that is the path that is most likely to produce sustainable change. And so when our state policy director, Ashley Jones-Weisner, needed to develop a new statewide advocacy project in Kansas, she started by sitting down with a whole bunch of various partners to hear what was on their mind. And what she heard about was food insecurity and the high cost of food and the sales tax on food. When Ashley did some follow-up research, she found that Kansas continues to have, even now, several years later, a pretty serious food insecurity problem. As you can see from this Feeding America chart, more than 18% of Kansas children were food insecure in 2016. That means that their families are at risk of hunger because they do not have adequate resources to cover the cost of a healthy diet over the course of a month. Ashley also noticed that 18.3% is actually above the national average, even though the cost of living in Kansas is well below the national average. And she found that the average cost of a meal in Kansas, which you can see on here as well, $2.89, is actually just barely below the national average. And that seems odd, right? That it would be the case given that our cost of living overall here is lower. So what's going on? Well, one of the major contributing factors is the state sales tax on food. Most states don't charge a sales tax on food, and those few that do usually do so at a much lower rate than other sales taxes. For example, Missouri taxes food at just a little over 1%. But Kansas, it's the same rate as all other things, 6.5% at the moment. When you combine the state and local sales tax on food, the average food sales tax in Kansas is actually above 10%. That's 10% out of everybody's shopping budget, grocery shopping budget. And that's a lot for all of us, right? But it's an especially significant burden for people who are low income, who are on fixed incomes. Healthy food shouldn't be a luxury for anyone, but the state sales tax on food in Kansas is making it feel like one for a lot of folks, and we've decided that we need to change that. So our goal is to bring the state sales tax on food in Kansas down to a rate that is competitive with surrounding states. And as you can see from this map, that would actually require pretty significant change in state law. So we've used a variety of strategies, and each of these strategies has required partnerships. Those strategies and partnerships have included working with funders who've helped us with polling and lobbying and securing white papers from economists on the impact of the sales tax. It's included partnerships with grocers and farmers markets because Retailers across the state have a really important perspective on the impact of this, and they've helped us educate decision makers at hearings and through media interviews. It's also included a lot of organizational partners, perhaps even some of you here in the room today, organizations like Kansas Action for Children, Kansas Appleseed, the American Heart Association, and many, many more. They have been crucial partners in helping to educate and mobilize stakeholders. Organizational partners have also helped us with media promotion, social media, and promoting our stories. Finally, we've partnered with legislators, legislators who became champions. This year, one of our champions, noteworthy champions, has been Senator Karen Tyson. She's the chair of the Senate Tax Committee, and this year she helped us schedule a hearing very early in session, and as a result of knowing that hearing was going to happen in advance, we were able to arrange testimony with expert economists and grocers from around the state about the negative impact the sales tax has on grocery spending in Kansas as well as the broader economy. We were also able to move, with her help, move our preferred bill out of committee in good time. Unfortunately, the school finance challenges in Kansas have once again derailed negotiations this year, and a bill did not pass in the Kansas legislative session in 2018. Although that's just disappointing, it's really important to recognize that big policy changes in state policy typically take several years of work, and they require flexibility and a continued commitment to moving the initiative forward. Some other lessons that we've learned along the way here are how powerful memes and infographics can be for policy advocacy. Good infographics really help you simplify a message and excite stakeholders. We used a similar infographic to this one in 2015 on Facebook, and it went viral, which was a very exciting thing to see happen. It garnered national attention. National media began covering the sales tax on food in Kansas, and that really helped us raise the heat on state legislators and mobilize them to take action. Finally, partners are crucial. I started with that, I'm going to end with it too. Stories of retailers and consumers are by far the most effective, persuasive advocacy that we have found, whether they are delivered in the form of testimony, one-on-one meetings, or with a simple postcard that we have used so that constituents can contact their legislators. Partners, our partners in organizations and individuals have been crucial to amplifying the message around the sales tax and persuading legislators to take action. If you're interested in learning more about this campaign or how you can become part of it, I encourage you to reach out to our state policy director, Ashley Jones-Weisner, whose adorable toddler has a t-shirt on that says, "Don't tax my snacks," in the school. She would be delighted to include you among our list of partners on this project. And with that, I am going to move on to the other project I'm going to talk with you about that has a big impact on healthy eating, and that's the Farm Bill. So the Farm Bill, despite its name, is about a lot more than just farms. It's in fact one of the biggest, if not the largest, pieces of federal legislation impacting how our food is grown, harvested, sold, and consumed. It has 12 titles. Titles are kind of like chapters, ranging from conservation to nutrition. It's a handy little pocket knife of policy around food. The Farm Bill expires every 5 years, and the current Farm Bill is set to expire September 30th of this year. So Congress began its work on the Farm Bill last year. That work is led by the House and Senate Agriculture Committees, and those committees are chaired by Senator Pat Roberts of Kansas in the Senate and Texas Congressman Mike Conaway in the House. Both are Republicans. Historically, the House draft is a more partisan piece of legislation, and it has been again this year, inspiring several party line votes. The Senate version of this bill is historically a more bipartisan affair and is typically modified somewhat in negotiations with the House, but is the framework for the bill that actually passes. This means that Senator Roberts is especially influential in developing a farm bill, and that means our region is especially influential. And so we have a privileged position, and with that comes responsibility. We have the responsibility to speak up for our community and to make sure that our priorities are addressed. So what are those priorities, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. Part of my role at KC Healthy Kids, as Shelley mentioned, is to lead the Greater Kansas City Food Policy Coalition. Our 23-member steering committee is composed of farmers, dietitians, consumers, folks from just about every part of the food system. And together, they decided they wanted to work more on the Farm Bill this year. So they researched how the Farm Bill impacts our region, and they developed 3 priorities. Each of them relate to healthy eating, and I'm gonna cover just a few of those highlights because our time is limited, but I'm happy to provide you guys with this handout. I have about 100 copies over there if you want them, and it goes into more detail. So we'll start with nutrition. The nutrition title contains 80% of the funding that's in the Farm Bill. 80%, who would have guessed, right? SNAP is one of the programs that's in the nutrition title. SNAP used to be called food stamps. SNAP injects $1.6 billion in food transactions, retail sales, in Kansas and Missouri combined each year, $1.6 billion. That has an enormous impact on healthy eating and on the regional economy. Food Insecurity Nutrition Incentives Program is another example how the nutrition title impacts our region. These grants, this program, the Finney Grant Program, is the one that funded the Double Up Food Bucks program. I believe that Donna is going to tell you a little bit more about Double Up Food Bucks, but broadly, it provides a matching incentive to help SNAP recipients buy more fresh produce. Even with all of this help from the nutrition title programs, our pantries and pantries across the country still struggle to meet the demand for people who don't qualify for help other ways through SNAP and other programs. The pantries in our country provide just 1 meal for every 12 that SNAP provides. So pantries can't make up for cuts in government nutrition programs like SNAP. They just don't have the capacity. And so that's why the coalition has made one of their priorities defending nutrition programs against funding cuts or structural attacks. The next title I want to talk about is the conservation title. Now, believe it or not, the Farm Bill is the biggest source of conservation funding anywhere in the federal budget. Anybody know that? Usually surprises people. So what, you think, does that have to do with nutrition? Well, Kansas City's drinking water comes from the river. And those rivers that we rely on for our drinking water flow through hundreds of miles of agricultural land, farms and ranches, before they reach us. Conservation programs like the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, or EQIP, help farmers and ranchers adopt practices to do things like reduce runoff into our waterways and reduce carbon emissions. That means less manure, pesticides, and fertilizer going into the water that you and I eventually drink. EQIP also impacts the availability of fresh produce. Local fresh produce is crucial to programs like Farm to School Academy, which Rachel McGinnis-Millsap from KC Healthy Kids is going to tell you a little more about. EQIP impacts that by helping farmers to install season extension devices like high tunnels that help growers extend the growing season so that they can sell food year-round to schools and at farmers markets. Small farmers who sell to schools and at farmers markets need access to these conservation programs in order to feed all of us. So one of the coalition's priorities is expanding funding for EQIP and other conservation programs and ensuring access to those programs for small, new, and socially disadvantaged growers. Okay, finally, yeah, I'm doing okay. So finally, I'm going to talk about research and extension. So there's a title in the Farm Bill called Research and Extension. The programs in it have a lot to do with healthy eating. They include extension programs that help with nutrition and food safety trainings and programs for low-income consumers. They include master gardener programs that help community gardens. They include research programs and grants for sustainable farming, crucial in a time when farmers are trying to cope with climate change. And they also include training and technical assistance for new, socially disadvantaged and sustainable growers. These programs matter because currently there aren't enough fruits and vegetables being grown in the US for everyone here to meet the daily recommended requirements of fresh fruits and vegetables in our diet. And so we need more farmers. We need more farmers to grow these things. But it's especially tough for new fruit and vegetable producers to get started, even more so if they're sustainable because of access to the very sorts of technical assistance, training, and financing that are available in the Farm Bill. So, it's crucial that we protect funding for research and extension programs that help build resilient, thriving farms that are capable of feeding us all for years to come. So what are we doing? What is the coalition doing? And what are we doing with partner organizations to advance this agenda? Well, we've been circulating a sign-on letter. We've collected more than 400 signatures on that so far. We've also been collecting individual postcards, which allow folks to tell their U.S. senators and congresspeople why the Farm Bill matters to them. And we deliver accumulated copies of those tools to our U.S. senators and reps during in-district office meetings. The goal is to lift up the voices of stakeholders and build food policy advocacy capacity in our community. And all of this work has been really well timed. We were contacted recently by StoryCorps, the national nonprofit that you may have heard from time to time on NPR. And I had the privilege of working with them for 3 days over the last week to do recordings with current and past SNAP recipients about their experiences with the program and how it's shaped their lives. We hope that those stories will help shape the Farm Bill. This work is really urgent right now. The House voted last week on a pretty disastrous version of the Farm Bill. It passed very narrowly, 213 to 211, and the Senate is going to vote on their own draft this week. The House and Senate bills are very different. I'm not going to go into a really detailed explanation of how different they are, but they're going to have to come to agreement before September 30th of this year in order to maintain stable funding for many of the crucial programs in the Farm Bill. The Senate bill is a big improvement on the House bill when it comes to the coalition's priorities, which I've touched on. For example, the Senate bill does not attack SNAP or other nutrition programs. The Senate, as I said, is expected to vote this week, so if you're inclined to do so, this would be a great time for folks to call their U.S. senators. All right, so speaking of which, let's talk a little bit about lessons learned on this Farm Bill project. So there have been several really important takeaways. One is that a strong Farm Bill really does feed all of us. Few people, when I start presentations on the Farm Bill, understand much about it, know what's in it. But once they understand it just a little bit, they can usually pretty easily identify important ways that it's impacting them as individuals. Policy is always personal, and our job as advocates is to help people connect with it, to make it a personal issue, and to help them use their voices to educate others on why the policies matter. The next is another familiar refrain by now in my presentation, and it's that we need partners to do this work. This work really requires strong partnerships, both with folks and organizations in Washington, D.C., who help us with timely and detailed tracking of legislation and strategy, as well as local partners who can help us respond effectively and mobilize grassroots networks. Personal stories are everything for this and so many advocacy efforts. Every in-district office meeting that we have had so far, and we've had, I don't know, 7 maybe, has included at least one moment when a constituent story that we shared got the attention of a staff member, and they paused and wanted to learn more. They leaned in and really listened to what we were saying. People are usually much more open to new information in the form of a person speaking about their own experiences than they are to data. Data confirms people's beliefs. Personal stories provide an opportunity for new ideas and mutual understanding. Finally, I would encourage all of you to make this a favorite in your phone. This is the Capitol switchboard. You can use it to call your U.S. Senator or your U.S. Representative on any issue, anytime. It is not a temporary phone number. It is a publicly available phone number. All you have to do is call it, and you'll be prompted whether you want your House or Senate member, and then ask for your zip code, and they will connect you with who you want to speak with. Makes it super easy, and you want it to be easy for folks to contact their legislators and use their voices. So with that, I'm gonna wrap up. Okay, and I'll take questions afterwards, after all my partners have spoken.